Before we start the video, please like and subscribe our channel for more videos like this. Now, start the video. I've worked in psychiatric emergencies for 12 years. If you've never been in a psych ER after midnight, you probably think of white walls, padded rooms, and maybe a few security guards leaning against doors. You'd be wrong. It's chaos hidden under fluorescent lights, a storm in slow motion. That night started like 100 others. The clock above the nurse's station clicked over to 11:58 p.m., and I was halfway through my coffee, praying it would be a quiet shift. My partner, Carla, was charting at the desk beside me. We'd had 2 admits so far, a manic episode and a schizophrenic relapse. Nothing we couldn't handle. The air conditioner hummed, cold enough to make your knuckles ache. A low drone of murmurs drifted from the patient rooms, broken occasionally by the rattle of a gurney or the buzz of the secure door. I remember thinking how ordinary it all felt, right before the call came through the intercom. Incoming from City PD. One male, mid-30s, found disoriented and violent on 3rd and Elm. ETA 4 minutes. Carla groaned. Another meth psychosis probably. I nodded, already standing to prep room 7. The isolation room. Thick plexiglass walls, security camera in the corner, single bed bolted to the floor. The usual. But when the patient arrived, something was off before I even saw him. 2 officers rolled him in, handcuffed, eyes wide and empty. He wasn't thrashing like most psych patients brought in by cops. He was still, too still. His pupils were blown, his skin pale under the harsh ER light. Name, I asked. One of the officers, a young guy with a tired face, said, ID says Daniel Harker. We found him standing in the middle of traffic. Wouldn't move, wouldn't talk. Just staring at something we couldn't see. Drugs? Carla asked, grabbing his wrist to check vitals. The officer hesitated. We tested for that. He's clean. But he kept whispering something, said he found the eyes. No idea what that means. I froze mid-charting. Found the eyes. Not the weirdest thing I've heard, but something about the way he said it, like it carried weight. We placed Daniel on the bed, secured him lightly. His pulse was steady, his breathing shallow. When I leaned close to take his temperature, he turned his head toward me, slow as clockwork, and whispered, "Don't let her in." I flinched. Who? Daniel. He didn't answer. Just kept staring at the camera in the corner of the room. Not me, not the door, but the camera itself. As if something was standing behind it. At first, I chalked it up to psychosis. Auditory hallucinations, paranoia. Happens all the time. But the tension in the room, it was different. The air felt heavier, charged like static before a storm. By 1 a.m., most of the ward had quieted down. Only Daniel remained awake, eyes locked on the corner camera. Every time I checked the monitor, he was still staring, completely motionless, even blinking less than a normal human should. Carla joked, maybe he thinks the camera's watching him. But I didn't laugh, because at once in 23 a.m., the camera feed for room 7 cut to black. I called maintenance. They said all cameras were online except that one. Carla went to reset the system, while I went to check on Daniel directly. The hallway felt longer than usual. My shoes echoed too loudly on the linoleum. When I opened the door to room 7, Daniel was sitting upright on the bed, still cuffed. His eyes were rolled upward, whites glinting under the fluorescent light. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, suddenly, clear as day. She's here now. The monitor on the wall flickered back on. I looked up. The camera feed showed me, standing in the room. But behind me in the reflection, there was someone else. A woman's silhouette. Long dark hair. No face. I turned instantly. The room was empty. The feed glitched again, then stabilized. Daniel was now lying flat, eyes open. I backed out of the room and slammed the door shut, chest pounding. Carla! Are you seeing this? She rushed in from the hall, pale. Yeah. The camera feed, it just looped twice, like someone rewound it manually. But no one had access to that system except security. At 2:07 a.m., things got worse. Daniel started screaming, not words, just guttural, tearing sounds, like his throat was ripping. His heart rate monitor spiked. We tried to sedate him, but he wouldn't stop thrashing. One of the guards had to hold his legs down. He screamed one final time, And then, silence. Just like that. His eyes rolled back, his body limp. I grabbed the stethoscope, pulse faint, breathing shallow. I leaned over him to check the airway, and for the briefest moment, I thought I heard another voice, whispering just behind my left ear, "You let her in." We stabilized him around 3:10 a.m. dawn. His vitals returned to normal, but he never woke up. Just lay there, breathing softly, as if asleep or trapped. Carla didn't want to admit it, but I could see it in her face too. Something was wrong beyond medicine. Later, while logging the incident, I checked the footage again. The video from room 7 during the blackout. It wasn't empty. There were frames where a figure appeared beside Daniel's bed, too faint to make out clearly, but the outline a woman, standing still, head tilted, facing the camera. When I zoomed in, my stomach dropped. The woman's face looked exactly like mine. I didn't sleep after that shift. Even after Daniel was transferred to intensive observation, I couldn't get the image out of my mind. That faint silhouette beside his bed, wearing my face. I told myself it was a trick of light, compression artifacts, something rational. But that didn't explain the voice. "You let her in." Those words kept echoing in my skull, like static. By the next night, I was back for another shift. Carla called out sick, migraine. She never called out sick. The unit felt emptier than usual, quieter. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, making the shadows seem to pulse. At 11:46 p.m., I logged into the monitor system, checking the feeds. Every room was clear except one. Room 7, the same room. Daniel was still there, lying motionless. His eyes were open now, staring straight into the lens again. When I turned my head to the security screen, it glitched. Just once. For a single frame, the reflection showed two people in the room, Daniel on the bed, and me standing right beside him. Except I wasn't. I was sitting in the control room, hands trembling on the keyboard. I called the tech department. They blamed a software update. Probably latency, they said. But when I checked the file history, that single frame anomaly wasn't logged. It had been overwritten. Like someone had erased it manually. That's when I noticed the new file folder on the desktop. Timestamp 30:10 a.m. from the previous night, the moment Daniel stopped screaming. The folder's name EWUD Loga $1. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were 37 still frames. Each one was a blurry capture of Daniel's face from the camera feed. But in every frame, his eyes looked slightly different, darker, reflecting something I couldn't see. By frame 37, they weren't even human anymore. I clicked out, heart pounding. Someone must have doctored the footage. A cruel joke, maybe. But there was no record of any staff login at that hour, except mine. At midnight, I went to check on him in person again. The hallway to room 7 was darker than usual, half the overhead lights flickering. The security guard on duty, Lewis, sat by the door reading his phone. "Anything from him?" I asked. Lewis shook his head. Not a word. "Barely blinks. The doc said it's catatonia?" I nodded. "Keep an eye on him." I didn't mean the pun. When I stepped inside, the air felt colder. A smell like wet concrete and rust. Daniel's gaze followed me, though he didn't move. "Daniel." I said softly, "It's me again. You're safe. Do you remember what happened?" His mouth opened slightly, a dry whisper. "It's not safe here." I froze. "Who's not safe?" "Anyone who looks too long." His eyes flicked toward the ceiling camera again. Then he smiled. Slow, wrong. She likes the ones who watch. Back in the control room, I unplugged the monitor. I didn't want to see anymore. But the moment I turned away, I heard the faint click of a relay switching behind me. The monitor turned itself back on. Room 7's feed filled the screen again. Except Daniel wasn't in the bed now. The frame was empty, just shadows and the white glow of the sheets. I rushed to the hallway. Lewis was gone. This empty. "Lewis." I called. Silence. Then, from inside the room, a tap, like fingernails against glass. When I looked through the observation window, I saw Daniel again, sitting cross-legged on the floor now, hands folded neatly, eyes locked on me. And right behind him a figure. Pale. Blurred like a static given form. I blinked. It was gone. When I entered, Daniel had turned to face the wall, whispering the same word over and over. "Look. Look, look." At 3:14 a.m., the power went out across the unit. Emergency lights flickered red, the air filling with the hum of backup generators. I tried to contact security, but the intercom was dead. The silence was thick, a kind that presses on your chest. When I reached the nurse's station, I saw movement in the reflection of the window, a dark shape standing behind me. I turned, no one there. Then the intercom crackled to life for just a second. My own voice came through. Don't let her in. After that night, Lewis never came back to work. His badge was found on the floor near the isolation wing. HR said he resigned, no notice. Daniel was transferred to another facility. No one would tell me where. The footage from room 7 was wiped again. All backups erased. But 2 days later, a new folder appeared on my desktop. No timestamp this time. No name. Just a single image inside. A still frame of the ER hallway, taken from the security camera above the nurse's station. In the picture, I'm standing alone, head turned toward the camera. But my eyes are black. And someone else's hand is resting on my shoulder. 3 nights passed before I gathered the nerve to go back. I told myself I was being paranoid, that stress and sleeplessness were twisting everything into nightmare shapes. Nurses in psychiatric ERs burn out all the time. You learn to live with ghosts. The kind that whisper from memory, not the walls. But deep down, I knew something hadn't ended that night. It had started. The first oddity came from the admin. Daniel Harker's file, the official one, had vanished from the system. No record of transfer, no digital chart, just gone. When I asked the records clerk, she frowned. That patient ID doesn't exist. Are you sure about the name? I spelled it out. She typed slowly, then shook her head. We've never had a Harker admitted here. I laughed, but it came out hollow. That's impossible. I treated him myself. Room 7 isolation. He was brought in by police. The clerk glanced up uneasily. Mom, we don't even have a room 7 in the psych unit anymore. I froze. What do you mean? They converted it last week. It's an equipment closet now. I walked away without another word, pulse roaring in my ears. When I reached the hallway, the brass plaque beside the door was gone. The frame was sealed. Just smooth white paint where the handle used to be. I couldn't let it go. That night, after my shift ended, I snuck into the IT office. The systems manager, Mark, owed me a favor. I'd patched him up once after a fall in the parking lot. Please, I whispered. I just need the archived logs from 10 or 12, psych unit surveillance. He grumbled but logged in. The database spun, loading hundreds of entries. Then I froze. A red message appeared, a CCSS Denon ID. USER REST receipt. ER protocol? What the hell is that? I asked. Mark frowned. That's not a hospital tag. I've never seen that before. He tried again. Different credentials, admin override. The screen glitched once, then filled with static. For a moment, I could swear I heard something beneath the distortion. A whisper, distant but sharp. She's watching. The lights in the office flickered. Mark yanked his hand away from the mouse. Okay, what the hell did you bring in here? I didn't answer, because through the static on the monitor, something moved. A shape. Long hair. A white hospital gown. Standing behind me. Mark screamed. The screen went black. When I turned, nothing there. The next day, hospital security called me into a meeting. They had footage from the IT office, showing me alone in the room. Mark wasn't in it. The monitors weren't on. They said I'd triggered a false alarm, causing system interference. They suspended me pending evaluation. But when I left the building, someone had slipped a folded note under my windshield wiper. No name. Just a few words written in block letters: Daniel Harker, St. Locus Memorial, Ward B13. It took me an hour to find it, a crumbling brick building at the edge of the industrial district, half forgotten. The sign out front was cracked, letters faded. It wasn't a hospital anymore, at least not officially. Inside, the air smelled like mold and bleach. An old security guard sat behind a desk, watching a tiny black and white TV. I'm looking for a patient, I said. Daniel Harker. He squinted. You a relative? Former nurse. He hesitated, then nodded toward a stairwell, down in B13. But you don't want to be there after dark. The basement corridors were narrow, lined with rusted doors and broken stretchers. The hum of old fluorescent lights filled the silence. Room B13's door was unlocked. Inside, A single bed sat against the wall. A camera mounted above it blinked red. Daniel was there, alive, awake. He looked thin or pale, but when he saw me, his expression almost softened. "I told you not to look," he said. "Daniel, what did you mean? Who is she?" He turned his head toward the camera. "They call her the Eye. She lives in the feed. You see her once. She sees you forever?" I shivered. "A delusion." He laughed. "Dry, hollow. That's what I thought. Until she started using my reflection." He pointed to the corner mirror, the kind used for patient observation. I stepped closer. My reflection was faint in the dim light. Pale face, tired eyes. Then behind me, something shifted. A second reflection appeared, a woman. Hair hanging forward, face blurred, moving closer to my shoulder. I spun around. "No one there," Daniel whispered. "You brought her with you." That night, I tried to sleep. I couldn't. Every screen in my apartment flickered. My phone, my TV, even my microwave clock. Each one glowed for a split second, showing the same thing, a frame of room 7, and me standing beside Daniel's bed. Then darkness. When I unplugged everything, the glow continued in the reflection of my window, faint, pulsing, like an eye opening and closing behind the glass. The next morning, my supervisor called. "We need to talk," she said. "The psych unit's surveillance shows you in restricted areas last night." I swallowed. "That's impossible. I wasn't there." She paused. "Then who was it?" "Because we have footage of you walking into the sealed room." My throat went dry. "Room 7. A long silence. Then, quietly, "There is no room 7. The hospital officially suspended me pending psychiatric evaluation." It should have felt like relief. Time away from the fluorescent nightmare, from the cameras, from room 7. But the quiet of my apartment was worse. When the machine stopped humming, I could hear it. A faint static in the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat behind the plaster. Every night at 3:10 a.m., the digital clock blinked off for exactly 10 seconds. Then, when it came back on, the reflection on my TV screen would show 2 shapes instead of 1. Me and her. On the 4th night, I went back to St. Lucas. Part of me knew it was insane, but I couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's words. "She lives in the feed." I had to understand. The guard at the front didn't even look up this time. Word B13. "You shouldn't go down there. He's not supposed to have visitors." "I'm not a visitor," I said quietly. "I'm a witness." The elevator stuttered as it descended. The lights flickered between floors, each flash showing my reflection just a half-second out of sync. When the doors opened, the hallway was darker than before, like the bulbs were burning out one by one. Room B13 was locked, but the door wasn't latched properly. Inside, Daniel was sitting on the floor, drawing circles on the wall with a piece of chalk. I recognized the pattern. Concentric rings with a dot in the center, like an iris. He looked up slowly. "You shouldn't have come back. You said you found the eyes. What does that mean?" He drew another ring, his hand shaking. "I used to fix cameras. Security contractor. Last winter I was called to repair a system at an old hospital downtown. Yours. The psych unit." I froze. He nodded. "I replaced the isolation feed, room 7. The footage was corrupted, every frame. There was something behind the patients. A shadow with a face that didn't move right." "What face?" I whispered. He glanced toward the ceiling camera. "Whoever looked into the feed long enough, she learned their shape. I used it. First the patients, then the staff." He pressed the chalk into my hand. "She sees through light. If you look back, she follows." The intercom above us hissed to life. A woman's voice, soft, distant, repeated, "Look, look." Daniel screamed and smashed the camera with his bare hand. The feed cut out, plunging the room into darkness. For a moment I saw nothing, then a faint outline rising from the blackness, inches from my face. Cold breath against my ear. "Now I see you." I woke up in my apartment with no memory of leaving St. Lucas. My phone showed a missed call, timestamp 3:10 a.m., no caller ID. When I pressed playback, it was only static until a voice whispered beneath it, almost gentle, "Open your eyes." I threw the phone across the room. It landed near the window, and that's when I saw it, a reflection in the glass, smiling. Not me. The next morning I found new bruises around my wrists, faint marks like fingers. I hadn't gone anywhere. Had I? When I checked my laptop, a new folder was waiting on the desktop, EY-02. Inside 12 images, all screenshots of my apartment from angles that shouldn't exist. In each one, the background grew darker, more distorted. Until, in the last frame, a pale figure stood beside me, touching my shoulder. Her face was still blurry, but her eyes were mine. I needed proof, something that said this wasn't madness. I drove back to the city PD archives. One of the officers who'd brought Daniel and Officer Reyes still worked there. He remembered me instantly. "You're the nurse from the Harker case. You still have his intake report." Reyes nodded slowly. "Not supposed to release it." But he scared the hell out of me that night. Wouldn't stop repeating one thing. What was it? Reyes flipped through the notes. "She's coming through the glass." Then he started clawing at his eyes. We had to stop him. I swallowed hard. Did he ever say where he first saw her? Reyes thought. Yeah. Said he found her in a mirror in some empty corridor, right before the power died. The same corridor where a nurse was found dead the week before. Name. He looked uneasy. Simmons. Emily Simmons. My heart stopped. Emily Simmons had trained me when I first joined the ER. She died in an electrical accident. That's what they told us. I remembered the day of her funeral, the closed casket, and how later that night the camera feed in room 7 had glitched for the first time. That evening, I covered every reflective surface in my apartment with sheets, mirrors, TV, even the kettle. Still, I could feel her, waiting behind every layer of fabric, pressing against it like static on skin. When I finally drifted into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of a hospital corridor, flickering lights. A woman standing at the end, hair dripping like ink. She lifted her head, and I saw my own face, eyes hollow and black. "You opened them," she said. "Now I can see." I woke up screaming. Every sheet had fallen away, and written across the mirror in white chalk were 2 words, "Lo Baque." Sleep became impossible. Every surface hummed faintly, as if the hospital's current had followed me home. When I blinked, I saw frames from the surveillance feed instead of the real room, myself walking, pausing, staring directly into the lens. The last time I went to work, the corridors didn't line up the way they used to. One turn led back to itself, fluorescent bulbs flickering like Morse code. On every monitor, my reflection lagged a second behind. I could feel her learning me. How I moved, breathed, blinked. At 3:10 a.m. the power died again. Emergency lights strobed red through the ward. In each flash, I saw her nearer long hair, hollow eyes, my face stretched too wide. She whispered through the intercom, through the radio static, through the hiss of the oxygen tanks. "Let me see." The next day, the chief called. "We've reviewed last night's footage," he said. "You were alone in the isolation wing for 6 hours, but I wasn't." Desperate, I returned to St. Lucas. B13 was empty, Daniel's bed stripped, his drawings scrubbed from the wall. Only one thing remained, a cracked security lens on the floor, its inner glass pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. When I touched it, sound flooded my head, screams, radio chatter, my own voice looping, "Don't let her in." Then another voice underneath. "You looked long enough. Now we share a sight." Light exploded behind my eyes. For a moment I saw through every camera in the city. Corridors, intersections, bedrooms. Faces turning toward me as if feeling the watch. Then blackness. I woke up in an evaluation room. A mirror on the wall reflected the physician taking notes. He asked, "Can you tell me your name?" I tried, but my mouth wouldn't move. In the glass, my reflection smiled anyway. He wrote something, stood, and left. Alone, I faced the mirror. My reflection blinked out of rhythm. Once, twice, then stepped forward while I stayed still. She pressed a hand to the inside of the glass. I raised mine without meaning to. Cold met cold. The surface rippled like water. "Now," she whispered, "you see as I do." And I did. Every monitor in the facility flickered on at once, showing my face staring back through all of them. Then the feeds stabilized. Empty rooms, still halls. No one ever saw me leave. Weeks later, a maintenance worker at the Psychiatric ER restored the old system. In the archive, he found a hidden folder logi 3. Only one file played. A nurse sits before the camera, pale, motionless. She whispers, If you're watching this, look away. Then the frame distorts. A second figure rises behind her, same uniform, same face, until the pixels blur into a single, unblinking eye that fills the screen. The video ends at 03:100. The hospital has since removed every camera from the psychiatric ward. But at night, in the dark glass of the windows, staff still swear they see a reflection that isn't theirs. Watching. My darkest TRO horror story as a psychiatric ER nurse closes with the narrator becoming the latest vessel of the eye, a digital spiritual entity born from the hospital's surveillance network. The story moves from realism, routine psych, ward chaos, to metaphysical horror where observation itself becomes infection. Daniel's warning, she lives in the feed, proves literal the act of watching grants her entry. The nurse's compassion and curiosity, qualities that once made her good at her job, become the very door through which the entity crosses. In the end, there is no rescue, only recursion. Every new viewer becomes a potential host. The story ends where it began, with the camera still running,